like most of you thought with remainders that you're really not going to have any practical use for it, percents, on the other hand, you're going to use every day for the rest of your life. And you're going to love them after we do this amazing, amazing lesson. So when you're doing percents, or when you learned percents, every teacher teaches it differently. And in most cases, your teacher is really confusing because you don't exactly understand what you're doing or when to do what they say. And when you get to the SAT, which loves percents and loves to make them really complicated, you're at a total loss and you end up getting a lot of questions wrong. So we don't want you getting questions wrong, even the easy ones, and especially not the hard ones. So what we have here is a really easy way of doing everything from your most basic percent question all the way up to your level 5 tricky percent question and everything in between. So the method that you want to use on the SAT is called percent translation. I know a lot of you have learned the whole is over of equals percent over 100 method, but when you get to really complicated questions, that is not your friend. So if you love that method and you guys are like married, you can totally use that on the easy questions, but the whole percent translation is going to be your best friend, maybe your spouse, on the really tricky questions later on in the test. And just as an aside, all of the things that I'm teaching you here, I want you to think of them as tools in your toolbox. So, for example, if you have a problem in your home that you can solve just with your bare hands, it's totally unnecessary to get all those freaky gadgets that you might have in your toolbox when, quite simply, you can just screw something in yourself with your hands. However, if you have a really crazy problem going on in your house and you need to use a whole bunch of your tools to solve it to make it easier, that's really helpful when you have those tools. So all of these methods I'm teaching you are just tools. So if you have the basic skills to solve those basic questions on your own, do it and use what you've done for years if you're really comfortable with it. But as soon as you get to one of the really tricky questions where your basic skills are just not cutting it anymore, that's when you want to pull out your tools and get those questions right. So I don't want you to feel like I want you to change everything you've learned in the past, but what I want you to do is know that you have these in your back pocket for when the going gets tough on the math section and you can't solve the question with your basic skills. So moving along, we're going to discuss what the percent translation method is. All it is, it's basically translating your question, which is basically a foreign language for most of you, into simple equations. And it's really, really easy, but it's something that you want to memorize. So that table in your packet, write it down on an index card, commit it to your memory because you're going to use it on so many questions on each and every SAT that you take. So what we want to remember is that anytime you're in a percent question and you see the word what, you're going to write down the letter N or whatever is your favorite variable. Maybe J or maybe X, who knows, but you just write down your favorite variable. Then if you see the word is just another way of saying equals. So we just write down equals. Then anytime you see the word percent quite literally means over 100. So anytime you hear like miles per hour, that's miles over hour. So per is just kind of a division. So that's the per. Cent is the Latin prefix for 100. So a century is 100 years. So cent just means 100. So if we just translate this from this foreign language, it's per, which is dividing, by 100. So whenever you see percent, you just write whatever comes before it over 100. And then the last thing that you want to know is the word of, which in all math questions, not only percent, always means multiply. So we're just going to try this basic question and translate it. We see 40%. So we know that percent means over 100. So this is just going to be 40 over 100. Then we have the word of, which is x, and then we have 80. And at the beginning of that question, it said, what is? So we would put in an n equals. So what is 40% of 80? Now we can just type that baby into your calc, and we end up with 32. So percents, anything from the most basic percent question like that all the way up to the super tricky ones that you're going to see on the advanced drill, which comes right after this, you can use the percent translation method and you'll be totally fine. The only other type of thing that you need to know about percents for the SAT is percent increase and percent decrease. They could also state that as percent greater or percent less. There is an equation that you need to remember to do those questions, and that is this: the amount of change divided by the original multiplied by 100. So if we look at that example that's in your packet, it says, if Jenny weighed 150 pounds last year and 100 pounds this year, what is her percent decrease in weight? So her amount of change went from 150 to 100. So 150 minus 100, that's 50 pounds. So that is our amount of change. Her original weight is 150, so that goes on the bottom. We divide that on our calculator, and then we're going to multiply by 100. So 50 over 150 is 1/3. Multiply 1/3 by 100, and the percent decrease is 33.333 repeating percent. And that's all you need to know to solve any percent question on the test. When you get past the basic drill, you're going to get to the intermediate and the advanced percent questions. Those are going to be really tricky, but you're still just going to want to apply this percent methodology.